Hello and welcome to Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Logan. What's your
It was good. No, I had the in-laws in, and so I got to celebrate with them. We've never hosted Thanksgiving, so that was fun. Thanksgiving is like a coordinated dance, especially when you only have two burners on your stove that work currently, and you have to operate like you're I don't know, like a timeline. So you have like 2 hours because we do like the turkey breast instead of like a full turkey, so it doesn't take as long. But you do have to coordinate. It's like 2 hours for that in the oven, and then you have the gravy, and you have the green bean casserole, and then you have to put that in the oven with the turkey, and it's all wild. So, yeah. So I think a lot of that, and then what else do we do? Oh, Ashley's birthday was on Friday, Black
right?
Friday. So yeah, so Thanksgiving was celebrating all sorts of stuff. It's always a busy time for us because her birthday's on that day, usually following Thanksgiving or right up to Thanksgiving. So um, it's always an interesting time.
Sometimes Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right.
Um, yeah, it's good to hear. Hopefully, she had a good birthday.
Yeah, she didn't ask for any Orlando City stuff, so yeah.
That's odd.
I know. I thought so too.
This week. Yeah, not that you asked, but my holiday was good too.
How was your holiday, Jordan?
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was good. We both got to sit around and watch our team lose in the playoffs.
That's a lot of fun.
Par
Yeah.
for the course. Yeah.
Right.
So used to that. Yearly tradition.
With a lot doing that. They never get to each other though. Like they never get to each other. It's like, all right, we could finally get to each other. No. We should start betting, Jordan, on that. Like we could just be like, you know what?
They're usually doing the Open Cup. I've seen them play in the Cup a few times, but
yeah,
never in the playoffs. But yes, bummer of a time, I guess. But we're here. We had a nice break. We didn't have to record for quite a bit because we took last week off for the holiday. So hopefully everybody survived without the show. I know you did. So here we are. We're back. We're recapping the games that just happened. We're previewing the games this weekend, and we're also talking about these awards that were handed out recently. As we now have our MVP. It's Luciano Acosta, who most people assumed was going to get it. And you know what? I kind of wish MLS would stop spoiling this, by the way. It's like a few days beforehand, there was like a special announcement. It's going to happen at the place where most people think the MVP is. And you're like, all right, there it is. They won MVP. Congrats. I get it because I guess they have to get the media there and stuff. But still, just kind of sucks that it's usually spoiled.
Yeah, it's wild to me that they don't just let the local media take over like they've been doing all year. They're the ones that have been at every single one of their games. It's not like the national media is really going to pick that up. And it's funny because no other sports do this. So it's not ever leaked. They always do. But I think the thing is they do like a ceremony where they have an awards like banquet kind of thing. I don't even know if they televise any of them. But I know they have like a celebration when
baseball does it like on MLB Network.
That's true.
They're like, here's all the Gold Gloves.
Yeah.
Here's all the, that's what the next step is, I think, here.
It's kind of fun
for Apple TV. For this MLS Best 11, like do a little presentation on Apple TV, right? Like season pass. Mm-hmm. I think that'd be fun. God knows we need content for it, right? So you can have like a 30-minute special where they're like, who do you think's going to be on it? And then they're like, all right, well, let's reveal it. And then you could interview a player or two and be like, what does it mean to be MLS Best 11? Mm-hmm. And they're like, nothing, really. It doesn't mean much. But here's the team. It's doesn't have a real formation, all right? There's 3 forwards on this thing. Denny Bouanga, Giakoumakis, Chucho Hernandez. Midfielders, we have Acosta, Almada, Hector Herrera, Hani Mukhtar. And then in defense, we have Miazga, Parker, Zimmerman with Berkey in goal. So you have a 3-4-3 lineup here. I don't know the best way to do this, honestly. I know people say, well, they don't actually have like a real lineup for this. They're just forcing players on who had a good season. It does limit, I think, some things, right? Like we don't really have a right back or left back on here. It's like 3 center backs, right?
Mhm.
So that's a problem, I think. But also, I think it is nice that we're not limited because um, you're able to acknowledge many people in different positions if you want to, and just kind of force it on there. I feel like we should be acknowledging the people that had the best seasons, not just the best season at a position. So my example is, let's say every left back sucked in the league, you being forced to be like, well, that was the best left back. So I
Mhm.
do like that they can do that, but also, yeah, it's not really a best 11. I don't know what else they can call it because it's not really the best 11 because there's no way this team goes out there on the field and actually plays well as a 3-4-3. It's probably not really working out that well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what you could do is just give it the blanketed statement of like first MLS team, second MLS team, because technically they
Like
could
first
all
all
be.
pro and all
Yeah,
that.
it's the same as the NBA, like doing that kind of thing. Jordan, he had 31 goal contributions. Lucho Acosta did. And he's the only player, he's the sixth player in history to have 3 consecutive seasons of 10 and 10. So that's nuts. Like the fact that he's been such a staple in MLS, and I think he often gets passed over because he had the time where he's left and then come back, and had that opportunity with DC. Now has had the opportunity to lead Cincinnati, and both teams have been successful, that he's kind of led. I kind of wanted to get your opinion on it because you've been watching longer than I have. Where do you kind of rank Lucho Acosta as far as maybe even midfielders and then maybe even players? Would you put him on? Would you necessarily put him on your Mount Rushmore? Like, is he starting to get up into that rank of like he's one of the more special players that's played here? Because I feel like he might not be talked about as much, but that's an incredible amount of goal contributions in one season, and then to continue to do that for 3 years is just
Uh, I'll say no. I don't think I
yeah.
can put him on the Mount Rushmore yet. You know what would really seal it? If he becomes the first player in forever to get 2 MVPs. The last one is Pretke, right? He's done it twice, where he got 2 MVPs. No other player has more than 1 MVP. So it almost feels like it's one of those things where a player has a really outstanding season, they get MVP, and then the next year that team struggles, whether because that player's injured, that player is not available, they leave, or they just have a down season. Um, I mean, he's really I loved him when he was on DC. I love him right now. He's definitely a fun player to watch, but I don't think I can be like, oh, he's like an all timer at this point. Um, because I feel like there's more than just on the field stuff too. Like I feel like when you look at the Mount Rushmore, you have to look at players like Beckham that came in and changed the league. But you also have to, Wando, who has the most goals, right? And Landon, who had, the most goals until then, but he was also like a fixture of a team that won multiple championships. Now I think if Acosta leads them to an MLS Cup, he got him a supporter shield. They come back next year and win something, and he has another good season. Then I think you can talk a little bit more about how he is, you know, um, like the player. But going into the season, we all thought Mukhtar was the best player, and then he has a down season this year. It's just, and not even like a down season, right? He's still on the all best 11, but just not an MVP season. But I do think we have a good shot that with the way those teams play, Logan, that might be one of our players that gets the second MVP, right? Like uh,
Yeah.
Mukhtar
Yeah.
usually plays pretty well. Acosta, if they have like another good season next year and he's integral to it again, and there's no like player that just comes out of it. What you have to look out for though is Messi MVP chances, depending on how they do.
Right.
Right. And I know people are tired of the Messi stuff. Even my wife was like, oh, I'm tired of this Messi stuff. And I was like,
He's almost
he's the
as
best
popular as
player
Taylor
ever.
Swift.
Simmer down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my! If he was dating Taylor Swift, talk about star power, guys. But it's just if he has a good season like he did with Leagues Cup, and he puts that together for a whole season, then we're looking at Messi is going to become MVP. He's just going to win votes too because of his name. Like that's something you have to think about too. Um, I believe when he was put up for newcomer of the year, if you look at the people that voted for him in that, it was mostly the players, even though he didn't meet the requirements really, because he didn't play much in MLS compared to Leagues Cup, and Leagues Cup shouldn't count to those year awards. Depends really, I think, but yeah, I definitely think Mukhtar and Acosta are our best chances to finally have Preki have 2 MVP in the league.
Yeah, just another fun stat. And this is from MLS.com. He's the 14th player in MLS history to record at least 50 goals and 70 assists. The last person to reach in their career, and the first player to reach that milestone since Diego Valeri in 2019. So he's in that upper echelon. Like if I'm thinking MLS, Diego Valeri is one of those names I think of that has been integral to the growth of the league. And Jordan, I think you and I talked about this where Lucho has said that, because we talked about players that wanted to leave Cincinnati, and we had Brandon Vasquez on that list. We had Brenner on that list. And Lucho Acosta actually got brought up in those speculation and rumors.
And Amaya, right?
Yeah, right. But Lucho came up in that speculation, but you and I both said that we thought there's a pretty good chance that he's a lifer.
And wasn't that a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I think so. So, I think he's happy. He's content in the U.S.
And he's playing his best football right now. I mean, why leave, right?
Yeah.
That's what I get. Some people have like those aspirations for over, but what I always looked at was like the U.S. men's Twitter people don't understand when they put people in Morris, who was comfortable at his home with his dog. He's got diabetes. He's worried about. He's away from everybody. It's the comfort, right? You're also, hey, he's won MLS Cups, right? So I mean, like, you're still winning stuff. Are you winning at the highest level? No. At some point, we've talked about it, Logan. At some point, we have to keep some of these players here. We have to, because you need that little kid that's watching at the stadium to say, my dream is to be a soccer player, not to say, I need to join you. I need a DC United or Union, because they're my local teams, to get me overseas. You want them to say, this is the team I grew up in. This is who I want to be, right? Like when I grew up watching baseball, that team was ingrained in the community to be an Orioles player, right? Not just a baseball player. I wasn't like, I'm going to go get drafted and then I want to get to the Yankees. No, right? Like I wanted to play for my team. We need that for soccer here. We need these kids that are in markets to say, I want to represent Philly, England, and be a player that's like, oh, he's fair. I want to represent my team. I want to lift them to a cup. I want to get them stuff like that. That's what we need. So when you keep players like Acosta, who DC tried to, right? He ended up leaving. There was rumors of him going to PSG at one point. Really, and then he comes over and he's playing well. Now you want Cincy fans to be like, I want to be like a play here. I want to win games here. That's what you need to really take this league to this level. At some point, we'll get. The league is only still 30, not even 30 years old. That's what, a generation, maybe? I grew up, when I was growing up, MLS wasn't around until I was 5 years old. So you need more. And then, like, my generation is growing up watching that. We're passing it down to our kids a few more times before, people are looking at it like that. I know that's not really what we were talking about. It was just a rant I had because I'm like, there's so many people that use this as a stepping stone, and right now that's good. Right now that is the plan. That's right. They send Princeton's overseas. They say we're going to take money on that. I look at it. I want it. Kid, if I wanted to play, I'd be like, I want to play for my local team. They're my team. I want to help them win. It's the same way when you have like players that grew up supporting Chelsea, grew up in the academy of Chelsea, that want to win stuff at Chelsea, not somewhere else. But eventually players are just going to go make their break as well. But little mini rant there. That's how you can tell we're still not quite there, is what I'll say. Growing up local that want to go over, going to be the case as long as the Champions League and stuff is, until the Champions League is the biggest competition that we're ever going to face because it has the best players in the world and everybody wants to go play in that competition.
Yeah, all good points. No, I think you make an excellent point. Every single league has those players that you grew up watching that are going to be around, that grow the sport, that grow the league, that are in the league and remain in the league. I think many people that watched soccer when you and I were kids probably followed La Liga because Messi and Ronaldo were at their peak. I think a lot of people probably watched United, Liverpool. I think there were a lot of fans of Chelsea and City as that started to become a big thing. I think you're right. I think you've got to have those players. Like when I think Manchester City, I can think of players like a Julian Lescott or a Sergio Aguero or Vincent Kompany. Like we don't have that yet in the MLS, in the league at all. So, you think about players that were, if you think about MLS, Jordan, and again, we talked about that Mount Rushmore, who would be on it. It's probably players that came over from Europe, honestly. It's those players that were at the end of their careers, like a David Beckham.
It's Beckham. He's not just what he did for playing. He did win MLS Cups here.
Yeah.
It's for changing the league
to
the point where we have Messi now. Like without Beckham, we don't have Messi.
That's true.
So you have to put that type of stuff in. So Beckham's on the Rushmore. This is going to be an episode in the offseason. I think we should do that.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. MLS Mount Rushmore in the you write that down so I don't forget that. A list of future post-season episodes. So if anybody else has ideas, send us that Mount Rushmore would be. Go ahead and send us that stuff and we can talk about it. And then I think you can even change it more and do a bigger one and say U.S. Not talking about U.S. national team, but just like players that have played here. Oh my God, you're talking about like Franz Beckenbauer and all. I mean, it's crazy. We'll stick down to that. Right, so let's we did best 11. We did Luciano Acosta. There's not too many names I would disagree with on that best 11. I do think you have to come up with more qualifications. Maybe we do have to have left backs and right backs on there. I don't know. It's tough. It's not like football where you can be like a all-pro quarterback, lineman, left guard, soccer, you can have somebody. You can actually put this team out if you wanted to. It may not do well, but you could. Okay. Orlando. This was the first game of the playoffs since they returned from their what felt like a sabbatical. It was about 2 or 3 weeks without any games. I saw that was the talk of the town. Hey, I forgot the league was even. That was a little over it. Maybe MLS head, but I never forgot they were like. I never forgot they were in the playoffs. It's just like, oh, we're paused. We're paused a bit. I do think they have to figure out a better way to do this. And what I would think, taking all of all the way up to the conference before that November international break. Then you have that international break as the build up to MLS Cup. Almost like how we have Super Bowl week where you have a week where there's like nothing going on and like the media is doing all this. You can drum up all of that. You gets with a week in advance of like guys weeks until Cup, fill the stadium. You'd get more publicity that way. Maybe I think that's the ideal way to go about it, because then it's not like we're paused after round 1, and then the teams that did get out, people don't really care anymore. But if you do it before, some of the casuals will probably still come back in because they have it scheduled MLS Cup. I don't know. I just think it's got to be a better way than how they're scheduling it right now. I know it's the international breaks, but I think what you have to do is get rid of the best of 3. Or if you're going to do best of 3, you're going to have the games be not on alternating days. You'd have to have all game 1 on Saturday, all game 2s on Wednesday, all game 3s on Saturday. You could maybe break it up a little bit where you have some game 1s on Saturday, some on Sunday, some on Wednesday, some on Thursday, some on Saturday. But I mean, I don't know. It did kill some of the, I think, discussion about it. And also, I mean, I think it kind of looked that way in the play a bit. Games were 0-0 for quite a while. Until the 93rd minute for Columbus. 90 plus 6 or something for Cincinnati. Part of that is, hey, we're kind of just waking back up again, So if you want more entertaining games, I think you got to try to get these done before international break. Okay, Orlando Columbus. This was knew you were cursed, Logan. I knew when you're like, ooh, in the conference final will be, maybe I should go to that. I was like, I'm losing.
Jinx that one. Yeah, that was.
I only say that because I do the same thing with MLS Cup. I'm looking at like last year, like, oh, we could. You're muted.
Sorry, you glitched. I was like, what happened? I just saw you drink, and I was like, did he say something? What did you say? I heard the MLS Cup part. I didn't hear what.
Yeah, that's all I said. I said it.
Okay.
Like that's what I was thinking with MLS.
Yeah.
Time, like hosting it and stuff, and that didn't work.
Yeah. No, it did not. And probably will regret ever doing that. But yeah, no, that was not a fun day. Saturday night, not fun.
Yeah, because it was back to back, huh?
It was yours brutal.
And then mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Slagle gets a red card. Really should not have. We talked about it over text, but this pull he does like a usual foul, like what they would call professional foul, to be like, yank, nope, you're not getting through. He was the last guy already. Close to it. He wasn't really the last guy, but he already had a yellow. You can't do that when you know they're going to call it. Probably going to. It's the game. It was brutal for somebody that had to get in goal in time. You would think he would understand. And it wasn't that dangerous of a thing. Like the goalkeeper was able to go get it, and it really didn't seem like it was that bad of a play. Maybe wrong, but I don't know. I think that's what kind of screwed them. And then as you go into extra time, you're down a man. It just starts coming, and you have Ramirez in the 93rd, and then Chucho in the 118th. That one not as egregious because so you're pushing everybody forward at that point. It's bound to come then.
Yeah. I mean, it really did. It started to feel like, and again, when you go down a man, you're playing with 10 guys. Your possession's not as much. You don't own possession of the ball. You're constantly under attack. It felt like Columbus had a lot more of just constant pressure in and around the box. I felt like their goal scoring opportunities were a little bit better. I think there was only one real chance that Orlando really seemed to have in that first half, and that was Martin Ojeda, where it was, I think it was the first half, if I can remember, but it was like at a weird angle. It was a difficult shot. He missed it. And then it wasn't until the second half that they get another chance where they started to put a little bit of pressure on Columbus, but I never felt like Columbus was rattled by it. And, they've had experience in some of these big games. So they've got some players on their roster that have been there before. And it felt like Columbus had a good opportunity to strike. And when they did, it really flattened Orlando just because I think, like you said, I think Orlando's kind of a chippy team. So when they do get kind of bounced off of their line, they don't take that very well. And we've always been kind of like that. I would say that our temperament's not as great. We've got guys that do tend to get a little bit more fired up. And I think when you got players like that, and they're good players, but I think, I constantly think of Pereira way back against the Revs, I believe it was, when I first started watching, and he went red card full, just, I don't know, drop kick right into one of the midfielders. I remember that specifically. He's always kind of had a hot head. Araujo in this match, he was close to getting a red. I mean, there was multiple times where he was all up in the ref's grill. I think, I don't know, it just felt like they lost their head a little bit. When Orlando does that, it feels like they can really get into that just because I think they got players that are a little bit fiery. And Schlegel's the same way. Schlegel comes into the game frustrated. He comes into the game ready to cause problems. And I think he's kind of that physical, chippy player that, again, he makes mistakes. He's not a starting center back, in my opinion. He's a great depth piece. I think he's always been a nice depth piece that you could fill him every once in a while, and he does pretty well, but he's just not going to give you consistency in the back. And they really struggled in the midfield. I think Pereira struggles as a 10 now. He's gotten a little bit older. He's played a lot deeper in the midfield this year, so he's not been as creative. And Facundo Torres was pretty much non-existent. So I don't know. It was a really tough game. I felt like our backs were against the wall pretty quickly, and it didn't feel good.
This Crew team, man, they're good. I saw them their first game of the season. They got ripped apart at Philly, but they looked really. And I remember covering that game. Wow, the Crew look really good. And then the Union came out of nowhere and scored 4 to make it, a 4-1 win. But I said after that on this show, they're going to be a good team this year. They're going to the conference final. They're going to face Cincinnati in a hell is real derby. A lot of people say we're like, we'll get to the fixing allegations in the next game, but just insane how good this Crew team has been under Wilfried Nancy. And then also Schulte just having an outstanding game and preventing or times so when they could have won the game or equalized late 100 goal. But the big question now is Oscar Pereira. He's out, right? He's out of contract anyway. We don't really know what is to come with him. I'm trying to read this article real quick that says what they're expecting, and I don't really it's an article written by Charles Boehm on the MLS Soccer. It's pretty much just questioning, hey, will he stay or go? His future's uncertain. What's your thoughts on the vibe in Orlando? I mean, he got them to their highest ever fit. I think that's probably the best they've gotten on the playoffs too, right?
Yeah.
What's next? I can't imagine the teams just being like, bye. I mean, that would be really lame.
Yeah. I think, part of me thinks that they're going to hang on to him. I personally would love for them to hang on to him. I think he's done a fantastic job. This year it was taking a little bit longer to kind of get the ball rolling, but once it did, it didn't stop. They had great momentum. I think they were probably one of the hottest teams. I would say argue maybe SKC was hotter. But there were moments where I thought, they were probably favorites heading into the playoffs because of how well they've been playing. And all of that's from Oscar. And really, I mean, since he's been here, they haven't really had that bad of a season. Like, it may be disappointing, but I don't think you're going to find anything else that's better out there. Like, the way that MLS is going and hiring, I would hate to see who would step in. It would be somebody off the streets. It would be somebody that we know, and it would be like, I don't know. It's weird. Like, I don't know who they would go to next unless they somehow could pull a bigger talent from somewhere else. But I don't see that happening. I mean, they are a pretty talented roster. I think they're going to run back pretty much the same squad. I would doubt Facundo Torres is still around, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. I just feel like his services are going to be wanted overseas. But I feel like the rest of the team, I think they're pretty much there to stay. I think Duncan's got a good another year under him before he heads off somewhere else. I feel like Angulo's played really well. I thought he was probably one of the most impressive pieces. So the team's all there. I think they're going to run back that same roster, add a DP spot, maybe that number 10 role, because they have a DP spot open, add another center back, and then they're ready to roll again. And I'd love to do it under Oscar. I personally would be upset if they let go of Oscar Pareja, just because I think the players like him, fans love him. I just think they haven't quite got over that hump yet. But I would think that hump might be next year. They've got great young pieces, and I think this is their first year a crack at it in MLS. Next year might be the year that Orlando is probably one of the top Eastern teams. So I say run it back. It'd be stupid to let Oscar go because wherever he goes next, he's going to do pretty well, I think.
Yeah, I would think the only way he doesn't come back is if he decides not to renew, right? Like, it's amazing that they let it go this long, and with the season they had. So
I find it weird. I find that very strange. Like, almost like there might be somewhere else he'd rather be. I just can't think of where. I don't know where that would possibly be right now, but I don't know.
All right, let's go to Cincinnati, Philadelphia. Mosquera scoring in the 90+4. This one had some controversial stuff as well. People saying he's offside. I will say he looks very offside by the angle. And I also want to verify that Paul Tenorio, I think it was today, said that the angle he kept referring to on the broadcast that the refs kept saying they had is the one that they showed on TV, which I would say clear. I want to preface this. I am a Philadelphia Union fan, but I don't try to let that sway in on this. And at first I was like, yeah, way offside. The more I let, the more I doubt it, honestly. And I know people will be like, well, I used the geometry thing, whatever they're trying to do. But when I look at the picture, I can see the lines in the grass. And this angle is awful because it starts off very small at the top, and then by the bottom is like huge. So while it looks like if you're looking at the grass, Mosquera is touching the next line in the grass, while who's keeping him on? Carranza's shoulder is not touching the line of the grass, but with the way that it's angled, see them actually. At least it's close enough to not be able to overrule it, honestly. And I think we cannot go by these angles on the TV. This thing is not really clear at all. Let me see if I can try to bring it up on the video here, because I think it might some aid. But I mean, it is what it is. These calls happen. And I know people say go to VAR, but they wouldn't check. They thought it's not wrong. And remember, that's what we're doing, right? We're not trying to, and I don't want it to get to the point where we're breaking out the rulers or doing some sort of geometry to figure out onside or not. If it's egregious, overturn it. If it's not egregious, leave it as is. Need this game of centimeters instead of. I mean, while you can say, well, technically he was offside and that's illegal. Even if they say, I think Nathan, from their model, he's offside by 3 inches. That's not actually. That's not a what's it called? An advantage. It's just not, right? And he's not even the guy that's offside, not even the one that scores, right? He gets this heads back in to the center where nobody picks up, and then he scores. I mean, that's just what it. That's just what happened. So here on the picture, his foot is the ball. Now see this line here starts off really large here, right? This grass right by the linesman's head. The linesman is here. This tell the thing is totally off, right? The linesman is supposed to be even with the last offender, right? So look at the last offender right here, Carranza, number 9, right? Look at where the linesman is, way past the line, right? Because of the angle. It is even Carranza, right? That shows what type of we're kind of dealing with here, which to show he's onside. That's as best as I can say it from this picture here. But again, if it's just 3 inches, I don't want that overturned, right? Like, to me, offsides has to be there an advantage, right? The advantage should be put in to stop cherry picking. People just hanging out in front of the goal. It's not, for me, I don't care. The Union had plenty of to win the game before this moment. I can't just be upset with the refs. This is the hardest thing of all time, by the way. Somebody is offside or not, you know. But that's what I would say. This angle is crazy. This is a huge grass here, light green grass. Up here, it goes from one cat logo away, right? So it's a very short distance between there. So to me, that just shows like this angle sucks. Thing there, Apple. If you want to get this league better on the map, we need more angles. We need it to be like the NFL, where there's an angle for almost like every little thing. I don't know. I don't really care. Put one of the pylon cameras on linesman or something. I don't know. Like, there has to be a way. The linesman is supposed to be even with them, right? So if the linesman has can it take a shot or whatever, that's one way you can do it. I don't know, but this is not just an MLS issue. This is everywhere, talking about how we're looking at just centimeters on if they're offside or not. And it's totally losing the plot on what offsides are supposed to bring, which is just from like checking the ball. There's no advantage if you're like slightly more forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've harped on this so much because we did stoppage time soccer show, which, I mean, VAR back then was crazy, and VAR now here is crazy, and people are like, well, we have a better method, and should limbs count, because limbs aren't really an advantage, especially your upper torso. Like, if your arm's out, that shouldn't count because it should be your feet, because your feet are the only thing giving you an advantage in soccer.
Yeah,
like,
the only thing that counts is supposedly like your shoulder,
right.
when you're looking at the arm, because you can technically shoulder the ball into the goal.
Yeah.
Who's going to attempt that? Who would try
Right.
to be like, I'm going to shoulder this one in today, man?
Yeah.
I always think, here's to do it, honestly. If the part they don't score on is what's offside, let it stand. So if his head is offside, but he scores with his foot, wipe that. Foot was onside. I just don't understand why we bother about that. His head did nothing.
Yeah. But no, I you know what's weird to me too is like how good our technology is nowadays, and we can't figure this out. Like, I don't get it. Like, there's got to be some way that you can truly figure this out with all the cameras and AI that we have, and just this intelligence of everything. Like, the machines can do it all. Why we don't have this is beyond me. I don't know. I think it's very strange, but again, we can check the goal line VAR and have it squared away when the ball hits the line. How come we can't have this with somebody's foot? It doesn't make any sense.
The bad thing we can with the way that they do these, Europe ones, where it's like, oh, his pinky toe was off, so it's offside, and you're like, come on, advantage. There's no advantage to that. Whatever. I'm fine with it the way it is, and that's really the talking point. That's what everybody's talking about. So, of course, I've been seeing this nonstop because I am a Philly fan, and that's who I follow on Twitter. So, talking about saying it's rigged so they can get a hell is real derby. Let me tell you, nobody cares about Ohio. They're not rigging this for Ohio, okay? If they wanted to rig something, it would be Messi somehow getting in. See, that's what it would be. Not since in the conference finals. All right, Houston has beat SKC. Escobar scoring a header off of a really nice Herrera corner kick. Just and a powerful header too. This is the only goal of the game. So SKC's run ends here in Houston. These rivals that have played each other a million times in Houston. And now they will go ahead and face LAFC, who they've beaten earlier this season, not mistaken, twice. I have to check now. I have to go to FBref and double check my thing here, because I for them being like really good against LAFC this season is interesting now, because hoping a fan who doesn't want to see LAFC win back to back, which means anybody outside of LA, you're looking at Houston getting to an MLS Cup final, which, by the way, would be insane after winning the Open Cup and like Ben Olsen taking them to an MLS Cup final, maybe winning if they can get past LA. So they played LAFC back to back in June. They all played them twice. Yeah, I guess they only played them twice. I felt like they played each other 3 times. They beat LAFC both times 4-0 and they won 1-0 away from home, which is where they're going to have to. So it's possible Dynamo do finals this season, which nobody really had predicted.
Yeah, coming in, I think people found that Houston was probably going to sit either bottom of that playoff group or not even close to the playoffs. I think many people thought they were just kind of a mess. Ben Olsen was somebody that I think a lot of people, was somebody that nobody thought was going to be the person that really turned it around. I will say, though, Jordan, give yourself credit, because I feel like you, out of most people I heard talk, gave them the most credit for making this signing, saying that Ben Olsen had done a nice job in DC. You felt like this was a perfect fit for them, that they brought in the experience. He's done it. He's been successful in DC. He had those teams with Lucho and Wayne. He's got this team now with Ache, and they're playing really well. They're a lot of fun to watch, and you and I liked watching them throughout the season. I think we laughed because they played more Eastern Conference teams than I think the Eastern Conference teams did. But,
at the beginning of the season.
Right.
And you know what? That was the harder division.
It was.
Wasn't it? And they had a great they had a great battle against Eastern Conference teams.
Yep.
Though if they have to face Cincy in the final in Cincy, they lost week 2-1.
Yeah. But no, kudos to them though. Like, man, the Houston's probably always been a pretty tough place to play, but now the fans are back and they're invested in the team. It seems like they finally have the right coach in place. I feel like Ben Olsen's the perfect fit. It's a good sports town. It's got great support. That stadium's really difficult to play in. I felt like they played really well at home this year. I think having somebody like Hector Herrera is helpful, just because he's played in some of the biggest games on the world's biggest stages. So having him, having Bossy, just having the veteran presence. You've got a guy like Steve Clark that's been around forever, doing this forever.
That's what I was going to say. I think he's
Like,
been huge for them this
right.
season.
So, and they've defended pretty well, and I feel like they've anchored that. I know a lot of people thought when Tim Parker left, this thing was just going to go into a shit show, I guess I can say. But it really is. It's been fun to watch them. It's a lot of players that I think were kind of written off our tour, right? So I think it's got a lot of guys that have been kind of just passed aside, and they've come together collectively as a team, and they're one of the most fun teams to watch now. So I'm excited to see what they do against LAFC, and I'm sure we'll do predictions. But again, I'm pretty high on the Dynamo, and I'm excited to kind of see what they do next. Even if they add a couple of players in the offseason, I think this team is really headed in the right direction.
I totally forgot that DC during the Ben Olsen era.
Was he really?
Yeah, 2017, 2018.
Huh.
He wasn't like the starter, I don't believe. I would have been Bill Hamid still. But, I mean, yeah, he was on 2017's DC United. Yeah, he only played 2017. That was before he went to Portland and became and then now with the Dynamo being forgetting he's with Dynamo now. See him on screen and be like, oh yeah, where he is. But he's been playing so well for them, and you have that experience, and like you said, you have Hector Herrera, you have Franco Escobar. Like they have a pretty good squad, and yeah, but if you're a Houston fan, you're probably a little worried. It's like, oh, okay, this will be the one time you lose to LAFC right before our final or something. But let's talk about it. LAFC, Denny Bouanga scores in the first half in the 30th minute to lift them past Seattle. Seattle had 8 shots on goal to LAFC's 2, 16 shots to 7, 69% possession, but couldn't get it done. Ladero is leaving. It's a little bit of a time now for Seattle to maybe reflect. I keep seeing Seattle fans, or some Seattle fans, I don't know many, but I see on Twitter some of especially this one guy just keeps going off on him like, Smetcher needs to go. And I'm like, the guy that brought you 2 MLS Cups? Sure, yeah, he needs to go.
Somebody else would take him. Maybe that's what Orlando's waiting for.
Yeah, they're like, please fire Smetzer.
Right.
Please.
I think a lot of people might be. Honestly, it could be. Like, I could see that. Like, very baseball-esque. Well, you wait for the manager to be canned and go, that might be a better option there.
Yeah, you had your earlier.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but LAFC, look, they didn't really game. I think they're there for the taking still this year. I've seen some people say, well, they're going to become back-to-back champs. And I'm like, I can't say that yet. It's rare for MLS champs. They don't look that strong, I don't think. I think Houston can take them down too. And if not, I think Cincy can take them down. If Cincy gets there, Columbus could take them down. Anybody can win out of these 4 teams. And I'm hoping somebody does, because I just don't really want a back-to-back MLS Cup champion, somebody else, to get their moment in the sun now.
Want a fun fact?
Sure.
Only 2 of those teams currently sit in the playoffs that were in the playoffs last year: Cincinnati and LAFC. LAFC won. Jordan, Houston finished 13th last year, and the Crew finished 8th and weren't that great. Fired a coach. It's funny to me.
They both made moves in the offseason that got there.
Huh? Right. Had a whole turnover. And this is where, like, I would like to emphasize, if people are watching this because they're just getting into MLS, or like, what are we watching here? We're excited about the playoffs, but I don't know what team to latch on to. Any team. It doesn't matter how bad they are. Cincinnati has been bad for so long. Last year, finally had a good year, made the playoffs, performed pretty well in the playoffs, but had some work to do. Did really well this year, won Supporter Shield. Like, this league is so unpredictable. And that's why when you and I do predictions, and we say that all the time, it's like, these could be totally wrong. and they are 100% totally wrong. Neither of you or I probably had the Dynamo anywhere close to the playoffs. There you go. 13th. We had it predicted that they were going to finish
I had
like
them.
the last.
I was still high on them. That's what tells you how bad they were.
Right.
The East, we had Cincy and
yeah,
we were close on Orlando.
We were close there. Yeah.
We had LAFC. I had LAFC 1. You had Austin 1. That didn't age well.
No.
I did have Sport playoffs though. A lot of people didn't. They made.
Yeah. But again, it's amazing.
I would say there are some teams you can steer clear of. With the way that the Panthers are going right now, from Charlotte FC.
Stay away from Red Bull.
Probably if you want playoffs but no wins, Earthquakes are really, unfortunately. They play well and then they get in a playoff and or they don't make the playoffs. They just play awful. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like alluding to what Curtin said. Like, he'd rather be playing in these big games and constantly competing in these big games and lose than just like be in bottom of the barrel, which some of these teams are. Like, we can point at, I know, like Chicago.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like Chicago.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like harp on Chicago, but really like they played well at points this season, all that. They keep rebooting and they keep going to a point where they finish near bottom, maybe middle, maybe they make the playoffs one year, and then it falls apart. And they haven't done anything since '98 when they won MLS Cup in their first, and that's really it for Chicago. So there's those type of teams that still exist in this league. And I almost put that more on ownership than I do on anything else. Because this is built for, if you like Cincy, you can turn it around. You can find that coach. You can put money into the team. You can find that GM that's going to build it right. And they're going to constant competing. Like Philly, even though their owner doesn't spend that much, they found good GM, good coach, and their consistency. Put more money into the team, but they are constantly going to be there now, I feel like. Columbus, they fired their coach when it wasn't working. Only a year or two after winning MLS Cup, and then they're right back in the hunt for it again. You can do it as long as you're willing to spend the money and find the smart people. But when you are constantly not wanting to put money into a team, that's when you're going to have some of those teams that just don't go anywhere. They might make the playoffs because like 90% of the teams make the playoffs, but they're not having a realistic chance.
Yeah. No, it's just, and we keep watching these games, and I keep thinking about that, just how great this league is. Because, I mean, seriously, Cincinnati was a laughing stock of the league, like a laughing stock.
People three straight?
Three straight, yeah, or two, right? I think it was two.
It was. I think it was three because they have three eyes in Cincinnati, and somebody made a Cincinnati with wooden spoon for each eye.
I think you might be right. But just like LAFC, of course. But again, they're really the only big market team that I can think of that have consistently done what they're supposed to do as a big market team. Like they are the iconic big market, big spenders, throw money, perform well, get the highest coaches, get the best assistant coaches, get the front office staff. Other teams want to pluck off their office staff. Like they are the ideal franchise right now. Seattle was at that point. I think they've kind of dipped a little bit just because the talent's gotten old and they haven't reinvested in young. I think that'll take a bit. I don't know if that happens under Schmetzer. Maybe that's what Seattle fans are clamoring for, is maybe it's time to kind of revamp it. If you're going to go young and find a new coach like a Steve Cherundolo, which I think MLS teams are afraid to do, is kind of take that next step. They just like the coaching carousel. But like you said, Jordan, there's really good teams in this league. I'm really excited about the direction that we're headed in. Miami's going to be an absolute threat next year in the Eastern Conference because they will have the star power that Messi does bring over here. I think they'll have one of the best strikers if they do bring in Luis Suarez. Like, this league is getting really, really good, really, really fast. teams are starting to invest. And if you don't invest, and the point I'm going to is if you're not investing like Houston has now, like a Cincinnati has, like Atlanta has, like Miami has, like these other teams are going to start to get left behind. There's rumors of that fourth DP coming along. Like these playoff teams are going to start to become more consistent. The Crew invests a lot of money into what they do. Wilfred Nancy is probably one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in this whole league. They are. You're starting to see some separation, Jordan. I think it'll be interesting to kind of see how we go from here, because I feel like 2023 we can mark this down as one of those years that teams are really going to start to separate themselves and the investment and the time that they're taking. And I can point straight to the two New York teams and say those two teams do not invest their time nor their money nor their efforts or resources into anything that's productive on that side of the field anymore. So again, the playoffs have reminded me of just how good this league is getting, and it's exciting because it's parity. There's always somebody new at top. So,
to say what we picked last week, we both picked Orlando. We were wrong. We both picked the Union. We were wrong. You picked Sporting Houston, and you picked LAFC. I picked Seattle. So we each got one right over on the West. All right, to preview the matches here and make our wrong predictions over again, we have the Hell is Real Derby Saturday, December 2nd. Cincy, Columbus, 6 p.m. in Cincinnati.
Did you ask me who I have?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. I'm going to get some hate for this one if people listen. I'm going to go big brother over little brother because I still think Cincinnati's the little brother until they prove the Crew that they're not. So I'm going to go Crew upset Cincinnati in the Hell is Real Derby. The Crew, man, like having played them, they are a really good team with a lot of experience. Like they've got some experienced players that come from different national teams that have played in this situation before, that really do feel like they are going to start to play like an MLS Cup finalist kind of team. And ultimately, I think they get it. I think Wilfred Nancy is ready for the match, I think, in a place where it's going to be hostile. But again, I think we see who's the better coach here, and I think it's Wilfred Nancy right now. So I'm really excited because I think this will probably be I'm going to say this is the best game that we get in all the playoffs. I'm going to say this is the one that will be, I'm going to go, it'll finish 3-2. I'm going to say it's a barn burner and just go with a 3-2 Hell is Real, one of those classics that we get.
Well, it's interesting because I have Cincy winning. But when they play at home, Cincy beat the Crew this year. When they played on the road, Crew beat them 3-0. Right? When they played at home, Logan, the score was 3-2. But you have it reversed going with Columbus. I'm going to go with Cincy. I have it as one. I think Cincy is the team to beat. And they're definitely beatable. But I just have to take the home field advantage. I'm going to advantage. They've played the Crew well there last year. This is what they've been going for all season long, is to get that home field advantage. They got it. It's time to do something with it and be able to host MLS Cup. And MLS Cup in Columbus, because it's definitely an Eastern team that gets to host it this year. All right, so LAFC versus Houston. Who do you got here?
I'm going absolutely wild again. I'm going to go Houston in this one too. I just like the way
that's who I have.
Yeah, I just like the way they've defended all year. I thought they played really well. Having a goalkeeper that is a veteran goalkeeper that's been there and done that and played on championship level teams, like having that is such a force. But I don't know. I just have a really good feeling. I think Houston will do a really nice job of shutting down Denis Bouanga. I think that he's really their only true threat. Carlos Vela, of course, could always score, but he's just not been the same person for a long time. I don't know. I feel really good about Houston. I feel like they kind of weathered the storm, and I feel like LAFC can't repeat again, right? They can't do a repeat. And I feel like they're not going to even repeat and get into the finals. I feel like this could be the letdown, right? This could be the one where people go, wow, really? Houston? But I don't know. I'm just completely sold on what Houston's done. So, and plus, I'd love to see Ben Olsen kind of shock some people.
Yeah, I have Houston as and go with. Did you give a score? I'm going to go ahead with Houston. Let's do 2-0. Shutting
You
them out.
stole mine. I was going 2-0 too.
All right, both 2-0. So we're putting our all eggs in one basket here. So we'll see who's right, who's wrong. Which would mean a Houston Cincy from Columbus too. I don't think you can lose with that type of final. Really, I think that's a good final.
Yeah, either one I think would be a lot of fun. So,
and then at that point, the only team that has not won an MLS Cup that's left is Cincinnati. So really, if you're, I wouldn't say underdog because they are the best team in MLS this season. But if you're looking for an underdog who hasn't won something before at this level, like an MLS Cup, if you're neutral, might want to hop on the Cincy train there, because Columbus has won a couple. Houston won a couple. I was in the stands for one of Houston's wins against the Revolution, and LAFC just cheer. So if you're for somebody, you're gonna want it to be Cincy. If you're looking for somebody that hasn't won in a while, it'd be Cincy or Houston. It hasn't won since 2007 when I was in the stands. So maybe that means I have to go to the game.
Yeah.
Make it.
And if you hate the Philadelphia Union, you root for LAFC.
Or Cincy. You can't go wrong, man. Both of them, if you hate Philadelphia.
If you hate Ohio, you want a Western Conference team.
Pretty much. All right. That about wraps us up. And then after that, of course, we get the final at 4 p.m. on Saturday, December 9th on Season Pass and Fox, apparently having the final. Final was originally supposed to just be on Apple TV, but that's interesting. And then, of course, MLS games this weekend. But yeah, that wraps us up here. I hope everyone has a great rest of their week. I hope everyone had a great holiday. And we will catch you next time when we break down and then the finals and then preview MLS Cup 2023.